The Board of Trustees of Pasadena City College Area District, please come to order. Roll, please.
Dr. Fellow, Ms. Brown,
Here.
Ms. Waugh,
Here.
Dr. Mann,
Present.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Dr. Selvage,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Ms. Cooper, would you please tell us what we will be talking about in closed session this evening?
Yes, thank you. Collective bargaining with PCCFA, Government Code Section 54957.6. Employee discipline, dismissal, release, 2 matters. Government Code Section 54957. Conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation, 1 matter, case number B252271. Government Code Section 54956.9A. Conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, 2 matters, Government Code Section 54956.9B. An appeal from administrative determination regarding complaint of discrimination, 2 matters, Title V, CCR Section 55938.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board? If not, we'll recess in closed session.
Okay. That's it?
We're back from closed session. Ms. Cooper, please report what transpired in closed session.
There was no reportable action in closed session.
Thank you. Trustee Mann, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Place your hands over your heart and join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for
which
which
it
it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we have introduction, times for introduction. Do we have any introductions from the trustees? Dr. Rocha?
None, President Brown.
Okay, so being that we have no introductions, we are going to switch our agenda just a tad and we are going to do the oath of office for our new student trustee. So if you will join me at the podium, please. I want to welcome you for one thing. We've been waiting for you. Okay, so I would like you to repeat after me. I, Marshall Lewis, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
The Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
That I take this obligation freely,
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will
well
and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Do you have words?
I'd just like to say thank you, and I can't wait to learn from you. And if you wonder why I was hesitant when she was reading that, it's because I took that oath once before as a Marine. It meant a little different things than that. Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations.
I'll have to ask him the same question a year from now.
So now we're going to go to, okay. This is time for public comment and non-agenda items. Do we have any? Trustee Wall?
No.
Oh, very good. No public comments. All right. Moving right along. Approval of consent items.
Approval of minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 25th.
Second.
Move from Trustee Mann and second by Trustee Waugh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain because I was not here at this time, so 5, I think it's 5 of us, right? 6 affirmation and 1 abstain, 2
abstentions.
because the student was not there. So that's how it passed. Right? 5 and 2. Okay, moving right along. Approval of consent items. We have a couple of items that have been pulled. 8P, 9P, 15P, 4B, contract number B150024, Community College Search Service Contract. And do any of the trustees have any items that they would like to discuss or pull? Trustee Waugh.
I would like to discuss B9, let's see, under 4B, B98409-4.
Any other ones? Trustee Thompson?
Item 6B.
Okay. Any, Trustee Mann?
I would like to just comment in 5P that Alan Armstrong is resigning after 33 and a half years of service in career and technical education, another outstanding long-term employee.
Okay. Any other ones? Trustee Salvage?
I'm not sure if it's in the consent. I'm not going to be going to the conference in Washington DC first week of August. There was an item in there for travel.
It's in the consent.
It's in the consent.
Okay, I will not be going to that. So.
Okay. So this is going to be interesting. All right, so why don't we vote a motion to approve the consent items with exception to 5P. Trustee Mann?
No, we don't, we can go ahead and approve it. I would just comment.
Okay. Trustee Waugh, which is yours?
4B, B98409-4.
Okay. And Trustee Thompson, yours was?
Item 6B.
6B. Okay, so without those, can we move? Do I have a,
Move to approve the remaining items.
okay, and do we have a second?
Yes?
Okay, so we have a first by Trustee Waugh and a second by Mr. Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so now we'll take them one at a time. Let's take 5P. Trustee Mann already discussed 5P, right?
Right.
So you're okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 4B, Trustee Waugh?
Yes, on B98409B, Blue Point Planning, the increase to the amount of the agreement for the facilities master plan to $25,000. So, so I know under the goals, we were going to receive the master plan, I think, either schedule or some sort of this plan to go forward. So I guess this is now past June, and we're extending this. So I was just wondering, do we have a plan for what more activity needs to be done on this?
Yes, Assistant Superintendent Miller?
Yes, Trustee Waugh, because of a variety of reasons based upon people's schedules, our architects and others' schedules, we have delayed the process of the campus-wide forum that will allow the board and others to see the work of the 3 conceptual planning architects. This should occur in mid-September. Okay. Blue Point Planning is a firm that we have used to help facilitate the Centennial Facilities Master Planning process, including the the wrangling, if you will, of the process that we put into effect to bring the 3 conceptual planning architects to the campus for their work. What will happen is we will continue the review process, which will lead to the selection of one of those 3 conceptual master planning architects to be the Centennial Facilities Master Plan architect as we move forward with our Facilities Master Plan. And Blue Point is a firm that has been working with Executive Director Smith to help us with that process. This is an extension through July 1 of 2015, so for the whole year. We may or may not expend all of these monies. We'll just kind of see how the process plays out.
So Dr. Miller, so the additional 25,000 is for unanticipated or additional meetings that we did not anticipate? Is
No,
that-
it's basically monies that we didn't spend this year that were budgeted, that because of the delay in the process, we are now rolled over into next year.
You mean last year?
Last year, excuse me, for 13-14, that we are now rolling over into 14-15 to continue our process. So these are monies that we budgeted in 13-14. We now, if you will, roll them over into 14-15, continue that process of facilitation to help us get to our facilities master plan.
But this is not rollover money, right? It's additional?
No, but basically, it became part of the ending balance for 13-14, so now we are rebudgeting it in 14-15.
Okay, so just one other question. So, I've been talking to my communities about us going out and talking to them about this master plan. So will we get a schedule at some point?
Yes,
So we make sure all the...
Yes, what will happen is, once we select the facilities master planner, the architect firm, then that whole process will begin. And that will be part of their process to get both exterior comments from our community at large, as well as our campus community here.
Thank you.
Okay.
And at a later, excuse me, but at a later date, we will bring the complete plan back to you and roll it all out for everybody.
So should we move approval on this
I
consent item?
move approval on this item.
Okay, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, now Trustee Thompson?
Yes, item 6B is recommendation that we authorize the Assistant Superintendent, Senior Vice President of Business College to enter an agreement with statewide Association of Community Colleges for property and liability insurance coverage, and the annual cost is going to be $732,548 for 1 year. Why, do we not already have property and liability insurance coverage?
If I may, and also Executive Director Simonetti can help respond to this, but the Statewide Association of Community Colleges is the basically a joint powers authority, a cooperative for the securing of property and liability insurance for community college districts. We have been a member for a long period of time. This is the, if you will, the annual renewal cost associated with this. If that doesn't answer your question, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Simonetti can provide further information if you need it.
Do we already have property and liability coverage? Any other source?
We do, and it is through SWAC, and the reason why it looks different than it has in previous years is because of the dollar amount. We pulled it out to make it an individual consent item. Usually it shows on the board's contract log for approval. The only difference is because of the dollar amount, we wanted to be as transparent as possible, so it is the consent item. But it's the same thing that we've had in place every year.
Why is it so expensive?
It covers our liability, property, electronic data processing equipment, crime equipment breakdowns, and it's based on the dollar amounts that we have in place for workforce. So it's a percentage of the workforce dollar amount.
Have we investigated other possible sources of this coverage?
I believe so. I want to say 3 years ago, we looked at different organizations, but I can double check and make sure.
But not this year?
No, not this year.
I would be more comfortable.
So if I can clarify, we sign a 3-year agreement with the organizations. This, I believe, is either year 2 or year 3. So 3 years ago, we did go out, we did look at different organizations, but every year, because of the dollar amount, we come to the board and ask for approval to move forward with the payments for this cost.
So this is a renewal of the second year of a 3-year contract?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Trustee Selvidge?
Is this in addition to the SWAC?
This is SWAC.
Okay,
This
SWAC,
is
okay.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Many of our employee settlements and the like are funded out of the SWAC insurance, so as we settle claims, this is part of it.
Okay,
Do I have a motion for approval?
thank you.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move along.
Okay.
Okay, now we will go to our board policy revisions. And we will turn to Dr. Mann, who is the chair of the Policy Revision Committee.
Okay, we have quite a few. We had them, you saw them last month. These are exactly the same policies, except I reformatted them. Ms. Koros and I discussed this, and I think it makes it easier to follow by this way. And what I would like to do is I will go through and just make a brief comment about the changes and then answer any questions, and just take these one at a time. We should be able to go through pretty quickly. And some of these there were questions and they came back. These have been reviewed by the Board Policy Committee. Before they came, they were reviewed in June by the Board Policy Committee electronically. We could not meet because none of us were in the state. It seemed like it was the summer. Okay, Board Policy 2015. This policy we have looked at before, and the issue we had was the cumulative GPA. And if you remember, we had quite a discussion about this when the Board Policy Committee met openly. What should it be? And we have found that it's going to be 2.0 because that's the legal requirement, and we cannot raise it, nor can we lower it. So it's lower now than it was. We changed it from 2.5, 2.0 to comply with legal requirements. All the rest of this, we haven't. The language in red is new language. It hasn't really, it's not things that we are doing differently, but I think we're just getting the legal language in here. And the other comment I want to make before we go any further is, Mr. Martin made a really, I think, excellent comment was, can we keep these as without getting it too complicated so we don't get tangled up? So what we've tried to do is we had an attorney look at these policies, and what we have is what's legally required. So what's underlined in red is legally required and it's new, but everything else in here is legally required. We have taken out things which we just thought would be nice. So in an effort to try to have the policies broad and that we'll be able to that the administration then can implement. So that's Board Policy 2015, and I would like to move on behalf of the committee that we approve it. Are there any questions?
So I have one question.
Yes.
So 2.1 for the GPA is a legal requirement, so that should have been in red, is that right?
2.0.
Okay.
Yes, it should have been.
Okay.
The
Great.
student trustee has a question.
Yes.
I was just curious, did you say we couldn't raise that legally? Because
Yes.
it's oh, okay.
That's what we were told. So there were some board members wanted to raise it, but we were told that it's, and the legal requirement is a cumulative GPA of 2.0.
Okay, it's kind of low, but.
Right?
it's
You're
kinda-
okay?
No, it just seems like it's kind of low for a student trustee.
We agree, and that's why we ask our attorneys to check it out. Ms. Cooper's here, is that not correct, Ms. Cooper?
It is correct, and it is 2.0.
Yes, that's,
Move to approve.
okay.
I move to approve this policy.
And I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Advisory vote?
Vice President Brown, I'm sorry, but point of order, it's important to call the student trustee vote as an advisory vote.
Thank you. Advisory vote? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So motion carries unanimously
Okay.
for this policy 2105.
I was just going to suggest if we could just maybe go through them all.
That's what I thought.
And then vote?
And have one motion at the end to, unless somebody has a question on one of them.
Okay, I think that's if that you want to do it, that's
Absolutely.
fine. Okay, the next policy is Board Policy 2105, which is the election of the student trustee. This, again, is the legal requirements. We had a great deal of discussion on this, and I think well, you can see that the red ink is the new requirements. And I think one of the questions was, if you can see, we've changed, must be enrolled in 9 or more units to maintain at least 5 semester units, and I think, Ms. Cooper, that again was a legal That was a legal requirement. It's not that we don't want our student trustee to be enrolled in more units, it's that we cannot impose additional requirements. Are there any questions on 2105? Okay, then we'll go to Board Policy 2200, Board Duties and Responsibilities. In this policy, when you look at the second and third page, there have been some responsibilities that have been added. Most of this comes right straight out of the California law, which is cited at the back. The responsibilities which are added were recommended as good practice. And does anyone have any question on any of these changes?
So, Trustee Mann, so whatever is in red is legal required, but then you said that we added some additional things that were
In this particular one, I should have changed it. In this particular policy, what's in red is good practice recommended by the consultant, and I forgot to change it in the.
Okay, but not legal required,
Not
but
legally
good
required,
practice.
but it's
Okay.
good practice is recommended. Okay, and it's pretty basic things like represent the public interest.
Sure.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, then we go to policy 2305, which is the annual organizational meeting. And actually, there's no changes on that one, but we are, except for the numbering and the review of the policies. Policy 2310, again, these are the only changes. I think it's just simply a clarification of our meetings. And what we have done is we're taking, in some instances, we're taking information from one policy and putting it to another. And that's what's pretty much happening in here. So there's actually no new changes here, I think, unless, let me just make them see. Yeah. The next, are there any questions on 2310?
Yes.
Yes.
Since I've been on the board, and it coincides with Dr. Fellow being president of the board, he has characterized some meetings as working meetings, regular meetings, working meetings, and this says it has two meetings. I don't know what's, is there something further in here about regular meetings or informational meetings?
I think we have two regular meetings. We meet twice a month for regular meetings. Sometimes we characterize those meetings as study sessions, but I think they're still regular meetings. And the other thing I should mention is that at the last sentence of the first page, public hearings shall be held on or before September 15th. We had said during the month of August, but really, and that's actually blue, it should be blue. The law is we must have it on or before September 15th. So here we're giving ourselves a little bit more flexibility if for some reason we don't want to meet in August. And, you know, the point that Trustee Selvage raises is a good point. I mean, this is our policy that we meet twice a month, and if we decide not to do that, then we might want to consider changing the policy, but that's what it is now. And when you go further on, you can see one of the things that the consultant simply suggested was, oh yeah, here's another big change. Recommended order of business, that's what would be like on the third page in. If you notice, it's underlined in blue. And there is no requirement that we put in our policy the recommended order of business. The consultant checked and Ms. Cooper checked, I could find no other district that did that. And so what we have then on the next page, and at the top of the next page where it says the Board of Trustees shall establish a normal order of business. That should have been in blue, and I didn't get it quite blue. This is much more standard, which simply says we have a normal order of business. So it doesn't tie the board members, board president's hand if they want to redo it, then we're not violating our policy. So we're recommending this change. Yes, Mr. Thompson.
It says regular meetings of the Board of Trustees shall be held twice monthly. Does this preclude an additional meeting if there was a need to have one?
No, it does not.
No, in fact, when we first started serving together, as long as I've been president, twice monthly at the date, time, place set at the annual organizational meeting, comma, unless otherwise changed.
Okay.
By
By the board.
vote of the board.
No, and we can have more meetings if we want. And we can obviously have fewer meetings. Like, in December, we usually only have one meeting, and in July, because of holidays and so on. But it's my understanding, looking at our policy, that if we don't meet twice a month, the board is supposed to act to change that. That is our policy. Yes, Mr. Selvage?
Well, okay, so the current policy doesn't call for 2 meetings?
Yes, it does. It's right there.
Okay, because I thought that, again, with 6 or 7 meetings now under my belt, or months, I thought that the president of the board had unilaterally, without a vote of the board, said we're going to have this many meetings, or in what was it, May or June, we had 1 meeting? But I don't think we voted as a board to not have 2 meetings in one of those months.
I don't recall. We should have, and if we didn't, we should be very careful to always not to follow our own policies, all I can say. We can't, I don't think we can go back. Yes, President.
Go ahead.
Roach?
Well, I would say we did follow the policy because the board presidents have been very forthright in, this is the meeting schedule almost for the next year, which includes when they're thinking it's going to be a study session or a workshop session or a special, and so, maybe we never technically said all in favor of canceling this meeting, but we've laid out extremely transparent, well in advance for all to understand the basic thought, and it's always on an agenda. The board members have ample opportunity to say, I'd like to have a regular meeting here instead of this, or I don't want to cancel a meeting there or that. To me, we're following the policy unless otherwise changed. And an opportunity to change that no one takes advantage of is still an opportunity to change.
Well, but by observation, my understanding was that the president of the board could cancel a meeting or whatever, so I was just raising the question. That didn't seem to be consistent with what we're talking about here for the future.
I think Mr. Martin gave you a much better answer than I did. I mean, if there's future meetings is on every agenda item, and the meeting dates are listed, and if any board member is concerned about it, I think we can always raise it at that point and ask it. So I don't think it was done willy-nilly. Sometimes I think the board acts without having a formal action of a motion and a second, and maybe it might be better for the minutes record if we did.
I wouldn't object to the president exercising, the president of the board exercising that prerogative, so I was just.
Well, but actually, our bylaw said that the board has to
Yeah.
agree.
I have a question, not a question, just a little comment. And I will have to agree with the fact that we do need to stick with our policies. And it is, in my opinion, that we have pretty much, on more than one occasion, not followed policies as far as our meeting schedule. So I would like us to adhere to it. If it says that we should meet twice a month, then that's what we should do. Be it business or be it study session, that should take place. I am not going to debate that we have been doing it all the time, but I'm confident that we have it.
Now, I mean, we can change this if we want to, but I don't know,
This will be
can
the
we?
time.
That's in
Yeah, I
red.
So
We
I
have to
would-
meet twice a month, Gil?
I
Do
would
you
be
know?
inclined to remove the word twice and say be held monthly at the day and time and place set by the annual organization.
Okay, and at the annual,
Organizational meeting.
Ms. Cooper, do you know, is that, can we do that? Is there a legal requirement that we meet twice a month?
I don't believe that there's a legal requirement on the number of times a month, Trustee Mann, but I can't give you a certain answer. But perhaps you can say monthly and additional meetings as agreed upon by the board. And that permits to have 2 a month.
Well, we could just say shall meet monthly, time and place unless otherwise changed by the board. And then wouldn't that include additional meetings?
Would?
I think there's, I mean, in my administration, there's been general assent that we should have 2 meetings a month. I don't think anybody has any problem with that. The administration doesn't have any problem with that. Although, as a matter of practice, there are a whole host of reasons why, quote, comma, unless otherwise changed by the board, in which it's not, I can probably go through the record and cite, a dozen reasons in which the board president, who is empowered by board protocols, to, make those kind of decisions. Oh, or because of the holiday schedule, or members may be missing, or because of the press of business, you know, because we're going to do the architecture, so on and so forth. So I'm not urging any change. I'm just saying that from the administration's point of view, we are perfectly comfortable with this policy the way it reads.
Yes, Linda?
Yeah, I don't really have any problem leaving it with the 2 meetings a month, and I think there has been quite a bit of discussion among board members that there are often times when we have so many things that we actually do need 2 meetings a month. The thing also that we have not done this past year is host some meetings in various areas of the community. I actually have 3 new superintendents in Area 5, so all of my districts have changed superintendents, and it would be helpful for us to do some of that outreach. So I'm in favor of keeping it as. I think to recognize some of the confusion that maybe Trustee Selvage is bringing up is I don't think we have a clear procedure on how we change the meetings. Sometimes I've noticed, depending on who the president is, we might announce it, we vote openly, and to me, that seems then very clear when we do it. But then sometimes I've seen that all of a sudden the change just appears on the calendar, and if you don't catch it, then it just goes through, and then you have to go back and ask about it later. So I think it would be better for us to have a more standard procedure by how we approve any changes to the calendar.
Okay, and then we could leave it twice here, and then these are policies, these are not procedures, then we can just get a procedure or whatever. Is that satisfactory, everyone?
Well, I can live with that. I am, again, I would remove the word twice to not make discomfort to those who feel like if we end up with only 1 meeting some month, we violated our policy. So I would side with taking the word out here, and certainly we as a board can have 2 meetings, and I just don't want to create a conflict where somebody's standing up saying, you didn't follow your policy, you only met once in August, da, 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 da. Fine, take the word twice out, and when we schedule meetings, schedule 2 if that's what we want to do.
Well, we might
Or
have,
3, or whatever we want to do.
we'd also maybe then have to take out the second sentence where it says the meetings occur on the first and third Wednesdays at 7 o'clock.
I would say at a time and place set by the board. I would make the policy broad to allow the greatest flexibility, and then we in our organizational meeting can give clearer direction.
Okay.
How does everyone else feel about that? We could just,
I-
yes, Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry, yes.
I object strongly to that approach. I think the way it's written right now, we're obligated to have twice monthly unless otherwise changed by the board. The board has the authority to make the change if need be. But I think that we as a board need to step up and, I believe, recognize and fulfill our obligations as oversight for what's going on at the college. And I think we need to have it in here in plain writing that we're going to meet twice a month unless the board changes it. I don't think it should be up to any one individual, regardless of what position that person may have, to go ahead and make changes. And I think that is what has happened, and I'm not sure that we benefited from that approach. So I want the word twice monthly to be kept in here.
Does someone want to amend this policy?
Well, I would move to amend it to remove the word twice and remove the specifics of the time and place, as you indicated, and that then would be up to the board. That's the motion, is to remove those. But my comment is then the board in its annual meeting can certainly set those in their annual meeting, but we're not in violation of a policy if we set something different. So I would move that amendment.
Do we have a second on that? So apparently that it's
Okay.
not carried.
Okay, so and then people do notice at the bottom of the page, it says that about the September 15th. And then as you proceed through this policy, there are some lines in blue, like on the last page, parliamentary procedures, suspension of rules, adjourned meeting. Those were added by the consultant just to make it easier to find things. That's just, housekeeping. Yes, Mr. Selvage?
Yes.
I'd like us to get it right. I think we can leave the 2 meetings in there as what the expectation is. When it indicates that we currently meet on the 1st and 3rd, does that tie us into meeting on the 1st? Because we've moved some of these around. Yeah. So is this just kind of it seems to me that we're sort of just throwing out some background information and having something that's firm, and then there's background information. Perhaps we could do a little wordsmithing, not on the fly, right here tonight on this particular thing, and handle it at the next meeting?
The amendment that Trustee Martin suggested did not pass, so we plan to leave it the way it is. I think that's what
Well,
you're
I'm
doing?
raising an additional
Okay.
matter about, it says currently meetings occur, but does that mean we have to have them then unless we vote by a whole vote of the board, or what?
Yes, you're correct.
That's what it means, and that's
right.
what, and that was part of Trustee Martin's motion, actually, was to take that language out and change that, too. That's what did not pass.
Well, one example of that, you may recall, because the Pass Educational Foundation was having its annual event, or spring event, rather, with Edward James Olmos as a speaker, I asked, and the board approved, moving our May meeting from the first Wednesday to the second Wednesday of the month, so we could all go to that. And Dr. Selvage went to that, Dr. Miller went to that, and it's just, and Dr. Fellow went to it as well. So that's an example of where we've recognized this, taken steps to make the change. There's no reason we can't do that, and I think we're better off leaving it as it is and just following that approach.
If I could speak, I guess I can, because I'm, the other thing I think is nice is you can go on the website, and the meeting schedule is there. And it shows which the meetings are for the rest of the year, which I think is helpful to the community. They have some kind of a sense that we actually are meeting on such and such a time. And then if we change it, then that's correct.
If nobody else feels that currently meetings occur if nobody else feels that is ambiguous, I will let it go.
Okay, any other questions or
I do,
comments?
but I don't think there's 2 others.
Oh, okay, there's 2. Oh, okay, no other questions? We'll go to Board Policy 2315, which is about closed sessions. And this is, there's new language here, but I think this is taken right square out of the law, is it not, Ms. Cooper?
It absolutely is.
This is what we are required to do. This is when we can have closed session, and this is how we do it. Any questions on that? The next one is Board Policy 2320, special and emergency meetings, and I would say the same thing here, is that these are, again, this is where there have been a couple of changes made simply to make us conform with the legislation, because the legislature keeps changing this, and that's one of the reasons why we have to keep updating our policies. Any questions on that? All right, then let's go on to the next policy, which is Policy 2340. And again, I think the only changes here are what you do in an emergency situation. It says in here that the order of business may be changed by consent of the board, and although we don't specify what the order of business is, we do say we'll have a normal process. So that would just mean to change the normal process. And it has to do about how you put an item on the agenda by community members. And I think, again, we're pretty much right square on the legislation, and we have the citations for the Education Code and the Government Code. Is that not correct, Ms. Cooper? You
That
worked
is
with the
correct, Trustee
consultant.
Miller. That is correct.
All of these is legally required. Like I said, we tried to, just a second, Ms. Thompson, we tried to keep very close to the language of the law so that we were okay. Yes, Mr. Thompson?
Just one question. I know that we post our meetings and agendas online. That's not explicit in here, but maybe it doesn't need to be. I just wanted
Does
to
it
raise
need to
that
be?
question.
It does need to be.
Is it not in here that's what's online?
Well, it needs to be posted online, whether it needs to be in the policy or not. It's provided by law that it has to be posted online.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Then I don't think it needs to be in here.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Any other questions on BP 2340? The next is on BP 3410. We've waited on this policy, if you remember, to get the updated language from the Chancellor's Office. This is the updated language that has all the categories. And I think what is new is well, I shouldn't say I think. What is new is we're including military or veteran status as a protected group, that you cannot discriminate against people because of their military or veteran status. So is that right, Mr. Colress? So are there any questions on this? Otherwise, it's exactly the same policy. It's just been amended to include the other protected group. Okay, the next one is BP 3430. And again, this is the policy on harassment. And it has also been included, it has also been modified to include the protected status and also to confirm with the legal requirements on harassment. It's my understanding the law changes very quickly on this, and we probably will be updating this again in a couple of 3 years as the legal requirements change. Is that correct, Ms. Colress? Any questions on this?
Okay,
Okay, and that's it.
that's it. So if we have no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve all the revisions of these policies as submitted by the committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, advise we vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we'll move on to, let's see, we got item H. Oh, item H, is that also for you?
That's me and Ross and Lynn, it's me and Trustee Selvage and Trustee Wall. I should not be quite so informal. At the last meeting, I had pointed out that we needed to complete our self-assessment in order to be in compliance with our policy. And we extended the deadline until meeting in August so we could, and our policy requires, and by the way, we have the policy here on the board self-assessment, that we review our policy along with our code of ethics and then complete it. What we did, so Trustee Waugh, Trustee Selvage, and I looked at the self-evaluation that we have used since 2008. Actually, I had it on my computer. We may have used it before that, but that's as far back as my computer went, which was before the last accreditation visit. And the first, let's see, the first 23, items on here, the first 18 items are from the policy that we have been using, and they come literally word for word. Matt Jordan can testify to this, out of the accreditation standards. There's a section that says this is what the board must do, and this is the exact language that we assess ourselves against. We had a discussion of this, and I pointed out that having served on 9 accreditation teams and having looked at governance, it's very, very helpful if you see that the board takes the language from the standards and evaluates itself against it. And if you're there, you can kind of just check it off, because these are things, we either have a self-assessment policy, we don't have a self-assessment policy, and it shows that the board is aware of it. So we decided to keep those from items from 18 to end. Then we had in the old policy, in the old assessment instrument, we had a bunch of questions that says the board is effective doing this, the board is effective doing that, the board is effective doing that. And we felt that these did not add much, so we have added some new items, which is 19 through 30, and these are items based on the model policy recommended by the league. And Ms. Wall might want to talk to that. And then we have as a board member, we have here items 31 to 38. And this we took from another model policy. So this is actually an individual self-assessment. The thinking here was that the self-assessment, we should do 2 things. We should make sure we're meeting accreditation standard, but we should also use it as part of board development. And then the last item is our goals. And actually, Ms. Wall took our college goals and we put them as to what the board, how it could be a board goal, and usually it's request information and provide resources to support. So again, and then the final is the written part, which was from our old evaluation and assessment instrument. So if you have any questions on the old part, particularly the accreditation, the ones for accreditation standards, I'll be glad to answer that. And the other ones, I'd like to defer to Trustee Wall and Trustee Selvage because they were also there at the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mann. So as Dr. Mann said, the league has been working on this as part of the Effective Trustee Leadership Program, and they are putting together a template for a recommendation for self-evaluation for the board. So many of these questions, although they haven't finished their copy that they would be distributing to the colleges as suggestions, many of these questions came from the current league handbook on effective trustee evaluation. And they say two things. So one of our objectives was to answer questions on how we were doing relative to ACC-JC requirements for our accreditation. But the other is how do we operate as a board and how can we operate more effectively together as a unit, both in our own relationships as a board, but also in a relationship to our college constituents and our community. So that was the intention of these additional questions. And as Dr. Mann said, I also then pulled evaluations from other evaluation instruments from other colleges who were cited as having had good models or examples of an evaluation, a self-evaluation, as deemed good by the league and by ACC-JC. And so we went through several other evaluation instruments and we incorporated that into our own assessment this year.
Great. Trustee Selvage, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just an observation, and that is that as we were going through this, it occurred to all three of us that these things are a work in progress. They're always being revised, updated as you go year to year and do your self-evaluation. But one of the things that is very, very useful is to make sure that the various aspects of the board performance that are being evaluated to the greatest extent possible be measurable and have some definition that you can refer to when you're assessing and expressing opinion about whether or not you think you've achieved what is expected of us.
Thank you. Any other questions or input? I personally read the instrument and I thought it was a very good evaluation, and I want to thank all of who worked on it, Trustee Mann, Linda, and Selvage, that for taking the time to produce such of a good document so that we could do our self-evaluation. So if we have no other comments, then I will entertain a motion for us to accept this.
Excuse me, we also need to look at, according to our policy, we need to look at our ethics before we can approve this. Go ahead, we can do this. And we need to look at our ethics policy.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Approve.
thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a first from Trustee Waugh, second from Dr. Mann. Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, then we need to look at the policy on the code on ethics and on the conflict of interest. And actually, these two policies are in complete conformance with the revised policy, although since Ms. Colross was gone on vacation, I just pulled the old one. If we approve these, she will simply put the new numbering in. Is that correct, Ms. Colross? And so those will be two more policies. And I think it's really important that we, I'm sure everyone has read the violation of the Code of Ethics. We are required to have this, and we are required to evaluate it each year. And the conflict of interest policy is pretty much, I think, again, just legal matters. I think what's most important in the Code of Ethics, there is a process there as to what we do in case there is a violation by the perceived violation by the trustees.
Trustee Mann, I'm sorry, on bylaw 1480, please note that the positions as listed are dated, are outdated.
Right.
The Board of Supervisors continuously contacts us regarding our annual Form 700s and asks us to update the positions which fall into the categories where there's mandatory reporting. So just to make you aware that those positions need to be modified to our current positions.
Okay, so if we approve that, we will approve it with the provision that will be modified to show the current positions. That's legally possible? That's
Yes,
no
Trustee
problem.
Mann.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments on these two policies?
So if no questions, no comments, so I'll take a motion for us to approve these two policies.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Trustee-
Okay.
Trustee Brown, there's one other thing. That is the board policy on self-assessment. I'm not suggesting that we approve this at this time. I think we may, as we go through the process, we may, and in preparation for accreditation, we may want to revisit our own process. We'll just follow it for now. But we are approving the other two things. And then Ms. Wall had a suggestion on how to do the self-assessment.
So my suggestion to the committee, and I put this out to the board, is other colleges that I have talked to distribute their assessment in various ways, and then it goes through the board secretary. So I suggested that we put this out electronically through SurveyMonkey, and I checked with Mrs. Thompson, and it would be possible for us to do that. And that way, kind of eliminates one person having to, usually the board president, having to sit down and compile everything, and we could get this results back pretty quickly.
Well, that avoids a possible Brown Act problem, too, correct?
The possible Brown Act problem?
Yeah.
Which Brown Act problem?
Well, you were talking about board members filling out the self-evaluation, individual board members filling out individual
Yes, and send it to the president. I don't think there was a Brown Act problem there. I think the problem was simply getting them back in and the board president having time to compile them. I've been board president. It's a pretty arduous process. And actually, our policy says that we'll go to the president. I assume we can agree not to do that this time and then see how it goes and then maybe look at revising the policy if that's agreeable.
So the board self-eval that becomes the board self-eval for the college is one which individual board members fill out and basically just get compiled by somebody.
And right now, it's the board president.
Right, okay.
Okay, and then
Okay,
there's an
fine.
open
Yeah, that's
discussion.
not
There
a
has to be open discussion of the results, and it
Right.
has to be a public record. I think the difference here with what Ms. Waugh is suggesting is instead of it going to the board president, we would do SurveyMonkey and it would go to the board secretary, who then would give it to the board president.
Okay.
I mean, if people don't have any
I
problem.
wanted to make sure I understood there wasn't any back and forth that might be construed as a Brown Act.
I don't think
Okay.
there's
Yes,
any.
fine.
In fact, there would be less back and forth this way. You're
Yes.
right. There couldn't be back and forth because it would be, and it's much easier.
Just one way, it's just going one way.
Yeah, it's much easiasier to do on SurveyMonkey, I know. Yes, Ms. Wall?
So Dr. Mann, if our policy says that this goes to the board president, then do we need to change that policy?
Go ahead and submit it to, no, it doesn't, because it just says submitted to the board president. It doesn't say how it's submitted, so.
Okay. Right, okay.
Okay, so are we finished over here?
Well, I guess we want to know, does any of the board members have an objection of using SurveyMonkey rather than have us fill it out manually and hand it to the board president?
Is there something?
If we use SurveyMonkey, are we able to save a copy of what we send off to the monkey?
I don't know, can we?
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Martin, do you have any comments on that? No? Trustee Thompson,
No, I
are you in agreement
big
with
fan
that?
of SurveyMonkey.
You're a big fan of
Okay.
SurveyMonkey?
So then we'll move up,
Better than trying to do it yourself.
so then do you need a motion for that?
I don't think we need a motion for
Okay.
that. That's simply a procedure, I would think,
Okay.
if the rest of you agree. I mean, it's still going to the board president, it's just how we fill the forms out.
Okay, so moving right along, we're going to informational items, Dr. Rocha.
Yeah, thank you, President Brown. I'd like to call forward Vice President Olivo. And as Dr. Olivo is going to the podium, this is a very, very brief information-only item around dual enrollment, but let me just briefly put this in context. 4 years ago, we had a joint meeting with Pasadena Unified. I was over at, I think, the senior center in town, and then Superintendent Edwin Diaz, and then Cal State LA President Jim Rosser. We signed a MOU that was designed to establish a 2+2+2 program. So, in a sense, what tonight is about is telling you about a concept. Telling you about a concept that staff has been working on for 4 years. This particular concept of dual enrollment is one that we will be moving through the details of the implementation of the plan and rollout in Pasadena Unified, but it's a concept that we mean to roll out with all of our unifieds in the district. So with that, Dr. Olivo.
Yes, good evening, board members and audience members. So if you would please follow along on the PowerPoint, I'll give a high-level overview of our new pilot project, which is called the PACT, the Pasadena Academic and Career Trust. And there are a number of individuals from various parts of the college who have been involved in this pilot project planning. So the idea of dual enrollment is one that is very popular across the United States and is gaining popularity in California. One of the reasons is to introduce high school students to the concept of college and to have students earn credit for both high school and college while they're attending K-12. So I know Dr. Mann is very familiar with this, as all of you are, with the new Senate Bill 1456, the Student Success Act of 2012. Students are required to select a major by the time they earn 30 units. And it's quite difficult for students to make those kinds of decisions if they've not been introduced to career exploration. So one major part of this project is to offer a career exploration course to 9th graders at Pasadena Unified. And at this point, we are going to offer one course at each high school, except for Pasadena High School, we're going to offer 2 because they were so interested in this idea. So we'd like to embed career exploration in K-12, help prepare students for the SB 1456 college experience, strengthen our link to PUSD, address remediation before students enroll at PCC, and educate students on the value of career and technical education certificates as well as associate degrees. As I mentioned, at this point, we are going to offer 3 units of career courses in the fall and a 3-unit CTE course in the spring. The idea is also to continue having students to explore career options in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade by embedding career exploration modules in either the English classes or the history classes. Eventually, we'd like for these students involved in the pilot project to consider enrolling in other dual enrollment courses next year, as well as their junior and senior year. Eventually, we'd connect them to our Pathways program. And that's the infographic that all of you have really explains that we'd start off with the 9th grade, do follow-up modules, and by the time they enroll here at PCC, it would really be a 2-year experience so that they were ready to transfer potentially to one of our major partners, Cal State Los Angeles. This next slide simply connects our educational master plan to the Student Success Act of 2012 to the tenets in the PACT program. And so why do we want to connect students to Pathways? Well, our preliminary results are pretty extraordinary. We have demonstrated a high persistence rate for students enrolled in our Pathways program compared to the students who are not enrolled in the Pathways program. And you'll see there's almost a 20-point difference between first-year experience and non-first-year experience persisters. The number of credits earned by students is also quite significant, especially when you look at students from historically underrepresented groups. So we want to be able to connect our in-district students to this very efficient and exceptional program. This next slide just shows you the tremendous growth that we've made in terms of attracting students from Pasadena Unified School District, but it also demonstrates that we have room to improve. So we feel as though we work within the K-12 schools from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, we will be able to formulate those very trusting relationships so that students seamlessly transition to PCC. This next slide, I know it's quite small, but it is from the California Department of Education, and it's data that I was able to extract to demonstrate that the graduates from PUSD, there are 1,283 high school graduates. This data was pulled from the year 2012-13, and 547 of the students are eligible to go directly to the CSU or the UC. Well, the remaining students, we could potentially recruit to attend PCC. It's also a reality, unfortunately, that even though students are academically prepared to meet the admission requirements for the university systems, perhaps they would not be able to afford it. So we could potentially get the other students who are also prepared to go directly to four-year. As you can imagine, in order to work on this pilot project, we've met with our partners at Pasadena Unified quite regularly, and our planning has been going very well. We have thus far identified that we'd like to target 175 students, and next week a group of us will be attending the Focus on Freshmen conference so that we can learn more about effective pedagogy and curriculum for 9th grade students. In early August, we'll be hosting orientations so that we can get students to sign up for this pilot project. And we've been working on creating a new course curriculum that we'd like to launch in 2015. At this point, we're offering existing courses for the pilot project. And I listed links there. I'd encourage you on your own time to view some of the videos from one of the best programs in the state at Santa Barbara Community College. And these provide testimonials from students who reflect back to their 9th grade experience taking this career exploration course as 12th graders. So they discuss how at that time they didn't feel it was important or they were too young to start considering their career options. But as a 12th grader, they realize how valuable the experience was and how informative and helpful it is to have that kind of knowledge when they're making decisions about their education. So if you would turn to your frequently asked questions, I imagine that you might ask, how will students be selected to participate? And at this point, we're relying upon our partners at PUSD. They know their student populations, and we're asking that they utilize their expertise to determine which parents and students to send invitations to. Also, under existing education code, students are allowed to enroll in up to 11 units per term of PCC credit without having to pay. And there's also existing education code that permits us to collect apportionment from the state in order to offer these courses. And I also mentioned there are other models that exist in the state. Santa Barbara is one of them. And this really great my hometown, San Jacinto, Mount San Jacinto College, has a wonderful dual enrollment program. I encourage you to visit those two websites so that you can learn more about what other California community colleges are doing. I also listed a recent article that was highlighting a community college in Texas. And this specific edition of the Community College Week newspaper was devoted to the fact that community colleges across the nation are experiencing an enrollment decline, but not this one college who has around 12,000 high school students enrolled in dual enrollment courses. And so this college has been able to sustain growth rates at 3 to 5% through these types of efforts. So it's a win-win. Students are able to get exposure to college. The national research shows that grade point averages are higher, high school graduation rates increase, college-going rates increase. It really is a project that can work, and we are looking forward to doing the work necessary in this pilot project so that we can iron out the wrinkles before we potentially scale up to offer this to more students within PUSD as well as our neighboring districts that many of you represent. So that's my presentation.
Okay, Dr. John Martin.
When are the courses, like the ninth graders, is the PCC, is it after school or is it during school? When exactly is it scheduled? And when, if they wanted to take concurrent enrollment, is it just connecting to a PCC course being offered at PCC or PCC Rosemead, or is there actually some other plan?
Sure. That is one of the unique features of this particular pilot project that's different. This course, or these courses, will be offered during the high school day. And we're working with Pasadena Unified School District administration to fit it in their master schedule.
Including when, like, there may be a concurrent PCC course offered at Pasadena High School, for example, on design for concurrent enrollment? Is that the way we're thinking in their day?
There are various menu options. One of them is to offer the courses during the high school day at the high school site. The other is to continue doing what we've traditionally done, which is offer courses after the high school day ends at the high school site. And the other is, as many of you know, we have around 700 high school students who enroll at PCC and take the courses here at the Colorado campus, as well as the Rosemead campus. So those are the three variations. The new one is that we're going to be able to offer these classes during the high school day.
Any other questions? Go ahead, student trustee.
I was going to say that I've always appreciated dual enrollment for the remedial aspect. So people who have to take, say, a Math 131 or something, it'd be really nice if they could get to take that before they get to college, so they can start where they're supposed to start. My questions are, I see that it says that follow-up modules in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade embedded in English classes. Do you explain what that means?
Yeah, usually it's either English or social science because those are requirements that are done in every grade. So every high school student has to take either history or English in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so at Santa Barbara, they use the English classes. At PUSD, it may be better for us to use social sciences. It'll be dependent upon what our partners think.
Okay, and these classes are specific to them? They're not shared with the classes we already have? It's a new class that's created?
We're going to be using existing courses, Introduction to College and Career Exploration, but for next fall, we're designing a new course.
Okay.
Go ahead, trustee Thompson.
Excuse me. I just want to say thank you very much to Dr. Olivo for putting this together, especially with the additional information. The one piece of paper that was in our agenda is easy to understand once you know what's intended to be communicated by that. But I've had, as I've discussed with Cynthia, some conversations with one member of the Board of Trustees of Pasadena Unified School District, and there's considerable interest in this program and what it may mean, and I'd say some concern that it doesn't interfere with what they already have in place for addressing some of these issues. And so I'm glad to hear that you're going to be working with, I assume you're working with Dr. McDonald, Brian McDonald, and
Yes, we've been working with Dr. McDonald, with Fal Azrani, Dr. Azrani, Dr. Marissa Sarian, as well as high school counselors from each of the high schools and the principals from each high school.
good. Well, that's terrific, because I just think, given the challenges that community colleges have, and as well as four-year colleges across the country, with students coming in not adequately prepared for college, this is a tremendous program. Granted, it's a pilot program, but it's a tremendous step forward, and be exciting to see what happens with it as you implement it.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, a little clarification on the main features of the program. The 9th grade 3-unit career course, that's sort of career education. This is educating students about careers.
Yes, so
Right,
the
that-
9th grade career exploration course.
Right, okay, that's the top line.
Yeah.
Now, when it says follow-up modules, that's follow-up modules of the career exploration course.
Yes.
Okay, got that. Now, this also says, the second line then, 9th grade, 3-unit CTE course in spring, and then, so that's taking PCC courses.
It's a CTE Business Information Technology course.
Oh, okay, specific, okay. And then dual enrollment, I'm going down through the bullet points here. The dual enrollment then is taking PCC courses at some time before they graduate to get college credits while they're in high school. Now, it's called dual enrollment. Trustee Martin mentioned concurrent, and I am fuzzy on the differentiation between those. Is that important tonight to know the difference? If not, we can skip that.
I can email all of you a vocabulary list. Many of us in the state had the same kinds of questions. Dual enrollment, however, is where students are earning both high school and college credit. Concurrent enrollment simply means that students are enrolled in college and not necessarily getting high school credit.
Okay. Okay, so dual enrollment is a course that satisfies a high school requirement and is a genuine college course, and they're getting college credit.
Correct.
Cool.
And the courses we've selected, PUSD has decided they will give high school credit to the students.
Are those courses taught by PCC faculty, or are they taught by high school faculty that have certification to be?
Sure. For the pilot project, we are hiring these faculty as adjunct faculty to teach our courses. In the future, we might do what our partners, our sister colleges do at Santa Barbara and Mount San Jacinto, and they hire high school teachers to teach the courses. And there's that type of flexibility because with career technical education courses, as long as the individuals have experience in industry and a bachelor's degree and/or a bachelor's degree, they can be hired to teach. So those are the kinds of, that's the kind of information we will be working throughout this pilot project year. But to start, we're just going to hire individuals as PCC adjunct faculty.
And the remedial coursework that was mentioned, mainly English and math, is that something that would be emphasized? I mean, could students at EHS or Muir, where I went, take courses that were like the remedial math or English courses that they would take here if they had graduated from high school, but they weren't ready for English 1 and math, whatever it is?
Yes, as a matter of fact, our last big group meeting with Pasadena Unified, we actually had the administrator responsible for district-wide professional development attend the meeting, and it's one of the agenda items we discussed on how can we scale up offering our remedial math courses to students in the high schools. So it's something we will also explore during this pilot project so that in fall 2015, we have sufficient, sections and methods to embed the curriculum for 9th through 12th graders.
Okay, sort of an extra emphasis on high school level math so that when they graduate, they really are ready for the English or the math or the English 1 and okay. My last question is on the first-time students in district high schools. I didn't understand what you were showing here on the chart that had the Arcadia, Arroyo, et cetera, first-time students in district high schools.
Yeah, so if you would look at
Yes, that one.
the gray part is what we normally, the level of students who traditionally enrolled. The red part is the growth we experienced after we implemented the first-year experience program. So we were able to attract many more students from our service area because we offered a program for the students to enroll in. And we feel as though offering dual enrollment courses will further increase our enrollments from our in-district high schools.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Mann?
Yes, it's my understanding, and you will correct me, I know if I'm not exactly right, on this, that our quote-unquote remedial math courses are not just repeating high school math, that we have our math department and with other math departments that's found new and interesting ways of teaching math. In fact, I think one time we had some students come and testify how exciting it is. So I think what will, at least my understanding is, we'll be helping the high school teachers and teaching math in a more interesting way so that you don't come and get again what you haven't learned before, because that has not worked. And we have masses of data up and down the United States to show that if you teach a college student exactly what they didn't learn in high school, forget it. They don't learn it the 14th time either. You got to take a new and creative approach. So you're just simply starting it earlier. And I think that's going to be very exciting. I think it'll be exciting to the kids, too.
Trustee Wong?
Yes, Dr. Oliva, thank you. This is a great program. So, as you know, I've been a big proponent of dual and concurrent enrollment. And so one of the things I didn't quite understand when you talked about that you had resolved the issues in the in the payment, I guess, when we have the concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment.
Dual enrollment.
Dual enrollment, yeah. So I guess Assemblymember Holden is moving forward the bill on dual and concurrent enrollment, and it's supposed to address, when it comes out, I guess it's supposed to address the issue of who gets funded, and then who gets the authorization, or who gets to say who gets to go into those programs. So how is this costing us, or what is the budget for us, or how are we resolving those dollars?
Yeah, there is existing, Assemblymember Holden, he is sponsoring Assembly Bill 1451, and it's a comprehensive bill that is supposed to take all the pieces of existing legislation and place it in one easy spot for all of us to utilize. At this point, there are multiple ed codes that Santa Barbara and San Jacinto use in order to claim apportionment and ADA for the K-12. So it is something that's currently done, except that I think Assemblymember Holden's bill puts it in such a comprehensive manner, it's going to make it easier for us to do it. We will claim apportionment for the students enrolled in these courses.
Okay,
and that's
good.
the agreement we have with PUSD.
Good. And I assume that if other districts within PACCD are interested, we would be willing to work with them?
We would, and I think it's better for us to work through this pilot and then in fall 2015, roll it out to other school districts.
And so, as I had mentioned earlier, I met with the new superintendent of South Pasadena, who comes from the South Bay area. So Dr. Yance mentioned that there is a program that's pretty prevalent in the South Bay area called Project Lead the Way, so it's CTE pathways.
Yeah.
And so he was wondering what we in PCC would be, if we are open to that, or do we have something similar? And so being the new president of LACSTA, one of my goals is to bring K-12 and community colleges together so that we have a more seamless transition. We talk about the solutions for that seamless transition.
Yeah, I do know when I went to the dual enrollment conference sponsored by the Chancellor's Office, I did speak with somebody from Long Beach City College, I believe, who has Project Lead the Way. And Dean Davila is very familiar with that model. This, one of the major components of this effort is to help students in K-12 understand the value of career technical education certificates and applied learning. And so, I'm really excited about what Dr. Mann said, helping to teach math in a different way, contextualizing it as Dean Davila and Deborah Bird have done in Design Tech Pathway has proven to be a very successful pedagogy. Students embrace that opportunity to learn math while they're working on design projects. So we will be receptive to working with you and the superintendent of South Pass in the future.
And so if we're familiar with Project Lead the Way, then we have similar models that we could roll out. Okay, great.
Trustee Martin?
I wanted to get a follow-up and a clarity on, is this primarily focused on career and technical ed, or can these students have an objective of transferring, similar to our chart?
Yeah, the pilot project, we're focusing on a career tech course in the spring, simply because in the fall, we're going to have students create an e-portfolio. So the My 10-Year Plan, which is a component of the career exploration course, the students will develop an e-portfolio, which they will work on to document their interests. And we felt like the BIT course, they can continue to refine their e-portfolio. At Santa Barbara City College and Mount San Jacinto, the menu items are for students in CTE, associate degree, and transfer. So we should offer courses that help each of the interested student populations.
Excellent.
As we work on dual enrollment, I'm going to keep going. As we work on dual enrollment, there's obviously been a big push in all the local high schools about advanced placement courses and the advanced placement tests.
Yeah.
And the biggest criticism of the advanced placement tests that I have heard is it's basically an all or nothing. And many times you end up with nothing after all your work, and you don't really know until it's all said and done, where dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment could offer a student a regular progress through so they know and have time to correct, make adjustments, secure a course, and in essence have the same, if not more, benefit, because the advanced placement courses are, depending on what you scored, get scored differently, and it's always a little ambiguous for different universities how they accept those. So is there some potential here in working this program, and especially as they move into the junior, senior year, to offer an alternative to AP courses where a dual enrollment course might be able to accomplish the same objective with a PCC unit?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I know of a student who is an AP student at a local high school who's also enrolled in college classes here. They attend PCC. But it's, you know, if I were at a K-12 site, I would see this option for advanced placement, international baccalaureate students, college prep students, honor students, and then also the population of students that the Advancement via Individual Determination Program targets, which is the students who are 2.6 GPA or below, and you know, students who are interested in going into vocational programs. So I think dual enrollment, since we have such a large number of course offerings at PCC, we could meet the needs of all of those different student populations at the K-12, including advanced placement and international baccalaureate students.
Trustee Lewis?
Yeah, I was going to ask, where do they fall for dual enrollment? Where do they fall in the priority for registration?
Oh, a good question. At this point, because we're not engaged in a memorandum of understanding with PUSD, we are following the state ed code, which states high school concurrent enrollment students are placed at the lower part of the line. However, I will return to all of you when we've ironed out all of the wrinkles in this pilot project and ask that you sign an MOU so that we become either an early college or middle college high school. Existing ed code states that if we are going to enter into that arrangement, then we can provide these students a higher registration. So I will return once we work out all of the kinks in this program and potentially ask that you sign an MOU so that we have that officially approved by this board as well as the school district board.
Dr. Miller?
I just wanted to add very quickly that both Trustee Waugh and Trustee Lewis hit two very critical items. One is the funding, and I know local districts are very concerned about the ADA that they collect, just as we're concerned about the FTS apportionment. So as you work with trustee organizations and others, that legislation that Assemblyman Holden and others are carrying is absolutely essential to this. The other thing about this is that this truly is a growth strategy for the district, and beyond that, it's a great opportunity to further reach out and serve our district. So this notion of establishing sections that can be applied specifically to these students is absolutely essential from a priority registration point of view, and all the things that we're talking about have to be worked out because they have direct impact on our revenue, and they have direct impact on our students and our ability to grow. So this is a very important pilot, not only for the PUSD students, but for all of our students. But we have to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's, and we make sure that this is done correctly.
And it's my turn. I am just so excited about this. This is something that I think is going to really help all of our students. In the past, we know that students that are focused will always do well. This opportunity for students at the 9th grade to be engaged in just someone from PCC or someone just trying to show you, okay, you can get this class and you could do this. This is just amazing. And what's a little I was a little kind of mad because this has been going on all over. And we are pretty much one of the last ones to come on board, but it's okay, never too late. This is a great time, and I'm excited, and I want to thank, I know I've sat down with Dean Davila. Dean Davila, thank you. Dr. Oliva, thank you. President Rocha, thank you.
Well, and doing that, one person that I do want to thank is Superintendent Gundry, because he really, it's a ground, as Cynthia knows, it's a ground game. I mean, you can talk up here, but it happens in the schools with the counselors and the principals. And when John Gundry showed up, things happened. Yes. So I'm enormously grateful to John, and I know we all wish him well.
So, we still have 2 more, and I think we're going to have to move on, okay, because you both already spoke, right? So go ahead, Trustee Thompson, to be followed then by Trustee Savage.
Okay. In late May of this year, there was California Department of Education announced that this Pasadena City College, among others, was going to get up to a $15 million grant, award of career pathways, trust grants linking education and careers. It goes on about creating sustained career pathways programs that connect business, K-12 schools, community colleges to better prepare students for 21st century workplace, et cetera. How does that fit in, if at all, with the pilot program that you are talking about this evening?
Yeah, in the infographic, if you notice where it says funding source, I list a couple of grants. One of those grants is the California Pathways Trust. And so it is a major component of the award that we received. We will be doing dual enrollment as a part of what we discussed in that grant proposal. So, for example, when we go to this conference over the weekend, that's funded by some of the grants. And yeah, it is a major component.
Good, thank you.
One question about registration, or priority for enrollment. Would that be a factor for any course other than the ones taught at PCC? If a student's taking a course at the high school, there's not going to be a problem with priority enrollment, is there?
Right. Well, we cannot restrict sections per se, so providing priority enrollment allows students to, get a seat in a course that we designed specifically for a program. I would say that because these courses are offered during the high school day at the high school site, I don't imagine that much of the general public will be interested in enrolling there. So the seats will be available to the high school students without problem. But we'll learn about that in this pilot project.
I went to a conference at which concurrent dual enrollment and all that was discussed, and there was some talk by some people about the need for the high school campuses to be, quote, open campuses in order for a college course to be taught there. So I don't know how that fits into all the other concerns people have.
Yeah, when we have been working with Pasadena Unified, I did provide it's probably like a 12-page document on ed codes that support dual concurrent enrollment efforts. And one of them is that because we're an open access institution, our courses must be available to the general public on their campuses, and they're fine with that. I mean, we did work through the issues that could potentially arise because of that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leva.
No problem. Thank you.
Next, Dr. Rocha.
Yes, thank you, President Brown. I call forward Dean Jordan and Professor Fleming, who are the co-chairs of the accreditation self-study effort, and they have a brief update on the progress on the self-study. So, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Stephanie Fleming. Thank you very much to the Board of Trustees and to the members of the audience for having us here. We wanted to provide an update for you concerning the self-evaluation and the process for accreditation. Just to give you a little bit of a highlight of where we are in our timeline. So obviously during the summer, there are two major things that I'm particularly working on. The first is a comprehensive edit of the standards. So as you know, and we shared with you the last time that we were here, the writing groups were going through the drafting process. They were provided with feedback. They went through the editing process, and they provided their final versions of their drafts. And I am going through the process of doing a comprehensive edit on that. To make sure that, we're fact-checking, checking with the experts in the area, making sure that there's, a continuous voice to the document. The other thing that I'm working on is drafting the introductory sections to the self-evaluation. This is like the history of PCC, the responses to the past recommendations that we've had, et cetera. And so those are the sections that are being worked on during the summer. Which brings us to September. And so once all of that is finalized in September, the self-evaluation will be made public for feedback, and that will also be made public to the board as well. And you'll have about a month to be able to provide feedback to us on that draft. We will take that feedback into consideration from both the Board of Trustees and the rest of the public, and go through and do another kind of edit of the self-evaluation. And then in fall, we'll share the self-evaluation with the governance groups, and again, with all of you here. And then finally, we'll be submitting our finalized version of our self-evaluation to ACCJC in December of 2014. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of where we are in the different sections of the self-evaluation, those front sections that I was mentioning, we're about 50% complete. Keeping in mind that a couple of those sections are going to end up being the very last things that we work on, like the what's happened since the last self-evaluation, things like that. We want to make sure that it's completely up to date. So those would be some of the last sections that we work on in the entire document. Standard 1 is in really good shape. We're at about 90% complete on that. Standard 2 is also in very good shape. We're at 80% complete. Standard 3, we're at about 65% complete. Right now, the content experts for each one of those areas is providing some feedback for each of those sections. And then Standard 4, we're about 90% complete on that.
And as Stephanie mentioned, part of the process was, as we reviewed the drafts from the writing groups, we provided feedback from Stephanie, feedback from myself, and also feedback from Julie Slark, the consultant that we engaged to be an external reader. In that process, Stephanie and Julie and myself, we identified improvements that needed to be made in both tone and content of Standard 4A. To facilitate those improvements, we called a meeting of the Standard 4 members over the summer. We presented our feedback on the improvements and asked them to review them and incorporate them into their next draft. About 3 or 4 weeks later, we received another draft based on the feedback, and Julie and Stephanie and I were all in agreement that additional improvements still remained to be made. And so Stephanie has been working on an edit of Standard 4 to move forward With Standard 4, we plan on meeting with the Planning and Priorities Committee to share with them the various versions of Standard 4 and to receive their input. The Campus Climate Survey is an assessment instrument that will likely be used as evidence in Standard 4. As you guys are well aware, it was conducted in spring 2014, this spring. There was an excellent response rate of 36%. Yesterday, the results were presented to campus leaders, and they've begun discussion of how those results can be used to facilitate improvements on campus, and how to best roll out the results in the improvement process this fall. We also assume that the Campus Climate Survey will be used as a tool for improvement by the consultant that's hired as a result of the RFI process. So to give you a little bit of history on the RFI process on campus climate, it was started as a recommendation from the Planning and Priorities Committee last fall. It was presented to the College Council, who asked the Planning and Priorities Committee to work with purchasing to develop a formal request for information and proposals from consultants. And you guys are well aware of this as you authorized the solicitation of bids at your April meeting. The scope of this RFI includes the development of a short-term process to improve campus relations, communication, and collaboration, and also assistance in developing a long-range strategic plan to address these same areas. The timeline for the RFI includes advertising, which has already begun. And on the next slide, I will show you some of the media and avenues in which we've advertised. By the end of August, proposals will be collected from all of the consultants that are submitting. At the beginning of September, a subcommittee of planning and priorities will meet. They will choose the top 5 candidates to issue an invitation to make presentations. Then they will forward to the Board of Trustees on the October meeting a recommendation of one consultant. And if the board approves, this consultant could begin work in early October. So the RFI has already been made public. Locally, it's been advertised in the Pasadena Star News. Nationally, it will be advertised in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and it's been advertised on BidSync, a procurement website. It was also sent to over 14 organizations and consultants that either the college has worked for in the past or that are known to have expertise in these areas. And that concludes our accreditation update, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Professors Fleming and Jordan. Let's see, so just having not been involved in the Standard 4 accreditation review, so when you say the self-evaluation will come back to the Board of Trustees, how will that happen? And then I have a second follow-up question.
Sure. So actually, we wanted to communicate with you to find out exactly which way you would like to receive the drafts, and we'll work with the Board of Trustees to find out which way would be the most valuable to you.
Yeah, in sharing them with the public, they will be published electronically on a version of a website that will also allow for the submission of feedback to get to us for Stephanie's consideration. So, it would be logical that the board could also submit their feedback via the website and electronically. Of course, we can also provide hard copies or in whatever media is easiest for you.
And then my second question is, on the RFI, because this consultant will be working closely with various constituency groups in the campus, but as well as with the Board of Trustees, is it customary, or is it even, do you think your governance group is even open to having any trustees maybe participate in understanding how that selection process was made, or maybe in some way engaging?
That's an excellent question, and we could certainly pose that question to the committee.
Okay, so if it seems positive, then perhaps it's something we could discuss.
Yeah, certainly.
Dr. Mann?
Yes, I do have a concern, and I want to ask both of you to reconsider a couple of things you've just said. The accreditation requires that the trustees remain informed about and involved in the accreditation process. Twice, I've heard you include us as members of the public, the board and other members of the public. We are not members of the public. We are the governing board. And I think it's really important that that message go out very, very clearly. So if putting something up on the website and saying, well, it's available to the public, the board can look at it, can respond electronically, I think is not appropriate. So I personally would like a hard copy. I would like an opportunity not to respond with the other members of the public. I think that demonstrates that the board is involved. And again, I can't stress this too much. We should not be the board and other members of the public. We are not members of the, we represent the public, but we still are the governing board.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback, and we can certainly accommodate that.
Thank you.
Trustee Lewis?
I was curious, the climate survey, is that somewhere public?
Not yet.
No, that is currently not public. Currently, campus leaders are discussing what will be the best rollout in fall to use it in the most constructive manner to facilitate improvement on campus.
Any other questions? Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That's our report.
Congratulations. Okay, so moving right along, we're now at the point for announcements by share governance. So shall we begin with associated student? Mr. Jordan Orozco.
So nothing too major to report. The Associated Student Executive Board is going to have their retreat July 25th through the 27th. We will be going away, solidifying board goals, and then we'll be coming back and sharing them with you on August 3rd, so that way we can introduce the new board to all you guys and we can have a fresh start. Yeah, that weekend, the weekend of that. Other than that, there's really nothing to report, so thank you.
Thank you. Classified Senate, Mr. Carlos Altamira.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. No, we just today we actually swore in the classified senate. Did 3 new senators: Graciela Caringuela, Mei-Ling Cheng, and Jeff Wojcik. So just want to acknowledge them that we serving the Senate and the college in this next fiscal year. Similar to AS, the Senate will be hosting its annual retreat actually in about July 31st, I believe, is our date that we selected, where we'll similarly be discussing our goals and we'll also present them to you at the next board meeting. And lastly, I think I got it down. Yeah. Wanted to just acknowledge a few of our classified members. Classified employees who earned the AFT Living the Legacy Award. This award is for those who have served PCC for 25 years or more. And as you can see pictured there is one of our very own, Glenna Watterson, who is here. And again, we're just very proud of these staff members who have, again, showed their dedication to PCC and continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have the Academic Senate, Mr. Caro? He's not absent. Management Association, Mr. Dr. David Douglas.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. We don't do swearing in the Management Association. I don't know. We try not to swear, but I do want to announce that we have 3 new Management Association board members, and it's really nice because we currently have a nice broad representation across campus, across the management. In addition to myself and Tunisia Bailey in Business Services, we now have Nikki Dixon from Student Learning Services. We have who are the other 2? Let's see. Oh, Joe Futner from Visual and Performing Arts and Media Studies. And we also have Julie Mosier from Human Resources. So we're glad to welcome those 3 to the board.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any announcements?
None from me, thank you.
None from me.
Trustee Wall?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate PCC and Dr. Roach's work, and also Dr. Miller, who helped get this on the agenda when we went to Washington, and we met with the White House group on the API initiatives. And this month, PCC is being featured as a model for API institutions. So I want to congratulate us, and I don't know if the rest of the trustees, if we could share that link with them. I think it's really wonderful. We did share it with the API advisory, and they were very complimentary of the work of the college. But it also, I think, hopefully this kind of tags our attention a little bit. I know that we are an HSI certified institution, but the APIs are our second largest ethnic student population. And as the White House has pointed out to us, we are not NAPC certified, and we certainly could be, which would open up some opportunities for us for some funding for our API students. So just want to put that out, but I want to thank everyone for their work on it. Also, I wanted to congratulate 3 of our PCC students, Raymond Kwong, Daphne Patel, and Joanne Lee, who received their graduation certificate in leadership from the Asian and Pacific Islanders for Disabilities in California. So they participated and were acknowledged as leaders of excellence. And that's it.
Yes.
Just one quick thing. We're going to have to get our KPCC committee working, and so I'm going to be sending out an email asking for availability, and then in turn we'll have to check with Bill Davis in Southern California Public Radio and find his availability to meet.
Okay, Trustee Salvage, do you have any announcements? Trustee Lewis, do you have any announcements? Great. So,
Trustee Brown, I'm sorry, I do have something. I'm sorry, may I
Okay.
come down? The Board Policy Committee will be looking at about 15 more policies for August, because we do have to get through these. And we haven't decided yet, depends on Dr. Fellow's availability. We may consider having another meeting where other people can come. I think we found that very helpful. And if so, we'll be letting people know. And again, board members are welcome to come. They're not required to come, but I think last time we raised some issues that were very important, and we had a chance to resolve them and then bring them to the board.
thank you, Dr. Mann. Okay, so now item M, the moment we've all been waiting for. Do you have anything you'd like to put on the agenda for future agenda items?
Yes, I see that there's a report in our packets on the Veterans Village proposal from Dr. Olivo. And actually, I got quite a few questions from the San Marino community, because the Veterans Resource Center had come and done a presentation, and San Marinans were very impressed and made a number of calls to Congress to move forward. And so they wanted to see where we were on it. And so if there's some action, or if there's something that we need to do to move this forward, it would be, I don't know, what.
Are you
Yes, sir.
proposing to
So-
put this
so
on
for
the agenda?
next-
Future
for- So
of
if that's an action that needs to be taken for next meeting, I would like to suggest that as an action item. The other item that I see in here was this request for appointment for the Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee, and well, a number of the other trustees, our representatives have now fulfilled their term, and so I guess we're being asked to put in, to recommend other representatives. And so I didn't know, are we moving forward? I mean, because is Measure P almost done, or is there still a committee, and so should we put that on the agenda? I'm not sure what action was being taken.
Yes.
May I speak to that very quickly? The Measure P committee will continue into the foreseeable future as we wrap up projects and we expend the remaining dollars that we have. So I think the memorandum that you have in your packets is a reminder, based upon something I think we shared about a month or so ago, that the deadline's coming up, and I believe in that memo it gives you the timeline that you need to help us with in terms of providing your nominees. But yes, we do want to continue this and need to into the future.
So is the process that we just submit the names then to you, Dr. Miller?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be fine. Thank you.
Dr. Salvage.
I mentioned, it was a couple of months ago, that PUSD has, I believe, on their website, information for members of the public who want to fill one of the slots that isn't allocated to a individual, in case of PCC, an individual seat. And I suggested a couple months ago that we do that so that it's not, just an inside game with people who know a trustee or whoever being asked to serve. We should make it possible for people, members of the public, to go on the website and see that the opportunity to serve on this is available in these particular slots, and they may qualify to fill one of them. There are qualifications and specifications for who these others, 4 or 5 representatives would speak for. And so we ought to have something available for the general public.
Dr. Miller.
Attached to the packet that we gave you this today is the agenda item from May 14, 2014, where we spoke to this item. And also attached to that are the bylaws, which speak to the appointment of committee members and what is, if you will, allowed as a result of the bylaws. I don't imagine that means that the bylaws cannot be revisited if, in fact, that what is listed in the bylaws want to be broadened. But I would invite the board, if they're interested in this, to take a look at this document and then get back to me, and we could certainly discuss any modifications that may be requested.
Well, what I was pointing out before is that if a member of the public went on the website, they wouldn't know what the process, they wouldn't necessarily know that there is a process by which they can express their interest and put their name forth to serve on the committee.
I understand what you're suggesting, Trustee Selvage, and I'll be happy to call you offline and we can talk about this and decide how we might be able to put that information online.
Trustee Lewis.
I was going to say for the veteran issue that she raised, I would have to ask Dr. Olivo, but I'm fairly certain that we're waiting on the VA before we can move forward. Is that correct, Dr. Olivo? Oh, sorry.
I can respond to that if that would be acceptable.
Actually, we wanted to ensure that we consulted here before we move forward with anything. And so as Trustee Waugh mentioned, hopefully this will be on the next agenda item.
Yeah, we will put that on the agenda for next time. And as the report, in your packet says, first, the VA has to do their part of the funding. And then we would, probably well after August 6th, bring it to the board for approval. And only once those two things have occurred would we move forward. Yeah, we're definitely moving forward with it, and next time we'll have a complete report.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of this memo that Dr. Leva put together is to alert the board as to the actions that are taking place and know that others are out there looking to secure those funds before we can move forward. And we just need the board to be aware of that so that you know what's happening.
A significant cost to the college.
Absolutely.
So we, obviously the board will need to know what that is and approve that.
Trustee Thompson.
As a future agenda item, maybe the September meeting, I'd like to have a presentation from the Pasadena Educational Foundation with respect to the summer enrichment program that we've put on, or with PUSD, put on this year at 7 schools in Pasadena. We've served in excess of 1,500 students this year for the summer program and provided scholarships for a substantial number of those students who are from backgrounds that could not afford to go and do it. So I'd like to ask that be on maybe the September 3rd meeting if we can accommodate that.
I'm not clear, Mr. Thompson. Did you want the Pasadena Education Foundation to come to the meeting
right.
and make a report?
Sure.
Okay, well, we will request that.
Okay. I have some contacts there.
Okay.
Trustee Selvage.
Right. I'd like to have a briefing of just what the status is and what the vision is for the veterans, this program with the VA. I mean, irrespective of what the VA is going to do and when they're going to do it and whether they'll have the money, I have only the most general idea about what we're talking about here, and I know it is a substantial amount of money that would be involved. So can we get a information sheet, the next meeting, a little statement of what's been discussed up to this point and the various particulars?
Yeah, and I'd like to add the organizations that I listed in the memo to you all. They are ready to do some fundraising. However, it was, kind of a delicate situation because this is not a project that's been approved. And so we wanted to, before we go out and do fundraising through social media, creating a Facebook page and whatnot, we wanted to, be able to have you understand the project, the concept, and idea before we did that.
Great. So our next meeting will be August the 6th. And at this point, I think.
Trustee Brown?
Yeah.
I noticed that, let's just look at this. We have only one meeting for August the 6th. Did the board act to not have the second meeting? Or was this in this early schedule, or how did this come about? I don't remember.
Well, I have Mary Thompson check the record, but my recollection is that the board approved the current schedule when President Fellow was here, but Mary can check and
Okay,
and
that
report back.
would be great, because we can always, on August 6th, we can always we could always act. But I think Mr. Selvage's point was excellent. We really should follow our procedure.
If it would help you, we can just entertain a motion right now. It's on agenda to approve the meeting schedule. That was in our packets. If a motion, we can do that in 2 minutes if that helps you.
So at this point, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. And we can do that another day.